Well, howdy, y'all. Hey, cousins and super friends. I'm Lady Protagonist.
And I'm the accidental mailman.
And this is Superhero or Not. Today we are talking about the Smoky Mountain Songbird, the First Lady of Nashville, the Queen of Country. Yep, it's the backwoods Barbie herself, the one, the only, Dolly Parton.
We're using science, rhinestones, and Appalachian fireflies to come up with a fail-proof formula and see if Dolly Parton is, in fact, a superhero. More than 100 million records sold and more than 65 years of music, Dolly Parton is one of America's most beloved artists and icons. But is she a superhero? Let's find out.
Okay, so to start this off, I have a very personal connection to Dolly Parton.
Do you?
Oh yeah. So, do you remember in Wizard of Oz when Glinda the Good Witch was like, "You've had the power the whole time"?
Okay, yeah.
I've had the dolly the whole time. So, first of all, my cousin, his name is Little Andy. He's 40 now, but we still call him that. I actually never realized that was from a Dolly song called Me and Little Andy.
Oh.
Yeah, well, don't listen to it, because it's, like, extremely sad. It's about a little orphan and her dog. It makes me burst into tears.
Does something bad happen to the dog?
I don't want to tell you.
Okay.
Something bad happens to the dog.
Oh, you just said you weren't going to tell me.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways, don't listen to Little Andy unless you want to cry. So, in addition to that, my mother's bottle blonde hair, my grandmother's big fake red nails. Dolly's music just filled my childhood, and everything about Dolly was just always there. But even more than that, we actually share DNA. Dolly is my cousin.
Your cousin?
She's my cousin. Do you want to know how?
Yeah, like how does that work? Like how many removed or whatever? Or?
So, my dad's family, father protagonist, his biological family, so they're all from Tennessee. They're all from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and his grandma was called Bertie Mae Parton.
Oh, his grandma was Parton.
Yeah, so I actually did the research. Throughout my whole childhood, everyone's always said, like, you're second cousins or you're third cousins with Dolly Parton. And I was like, is that really true? I went on and I built a family tree and I checked it out. So my fourth great-grandfather is the younger brother of Dolly's third great-grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you go down the line, Bertie Mae Parton, who is my great-grandma, she was cousins with William Walter Parton, who is Dolly's paternal grandfather.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so pretty wild. I'm actually related to Dolly Parton.
Get some of that Parton blood in you.
I do. So they're all from the Great Smoky Mountains area in Tennessee, and that kind of takes us to the first question in our special formula. Does Dolly have a compelling origin story?
Who is Dolly Parton?
I'd love to tell you. Okay, first let's go way back. Think of the images that fill your head when you hear the words dirt poor. That's Dolly's childhood. We're talking Grapes of Wrath, Dust Bowl style poor, like dirt everywhere. No electricity, no heat, no running water, no plumbing. There wasn't even a paved road near Dolly's home until the 1950s.
She was born in 1946, right?
That's right. Dolly said that her family basically had nothing. She said her family had one small radio that ran on batteries and barely picked up a reception. So it's really interesting to imagine what life would have been like back then without any form of entertainment that was created outside the home.
Yeah, interesting, all right.
Yeah, so it makes complete sense that Dolly and her siblings had to develop and practice their creative muscles. And speaking of siblings, Dolly's one of 12 children.
Okay.
6 boys and 6 girls. Willa Dean, David Wilburn, Coy Denver, Dolly Rebecca, Bobby Lee, Stella Mae, Cassie Nan, Randall Houston, also called Randy, Larry Gerald, who died just a few days after being born, and Floyd Estelle, Frida Estelle, and Rachel Ann. So that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, when you have a lot of kids, you really got to get creative with the names, huh?
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't start just numbering them.
Yeah, or just repeating names.
Yeah, like Dolly 2, Dolly 3. Well, it's kind of funny that I say that because Dolly's siblings were all very musical themselves. So Floyd often wrote songs with Dolly. She considered him a songwriting partner. Stella had a hit on the charts in the 1970s called I Want to Hold You in My Dreams Tonight.
in her own right, like not as like with Dolly, like a...
No, although they sang duets all the time.
Okay.
And then Randy and Cassie both performed often at the Dollywood theme park. The coolest part is Frida was in a punk band.
Nice. Maybe I should check out the punk band.
Can you imagine Dolly Parton in a punk band?
I tried to look up, because usually I listen to a little bit harder music than Dolly Parton. I was like, what's like the hardest Dolly song? But maybe I should look up some Frida Parton.
I wish I wrote down the punk band's name, but
I'll look it up.
It's in the 80s, I think.
Peter Farton. That's my band.
That's terrible. Because people who don't eat meat fart a lot?
Well, people who eat pita fart.
Okay. All right. So, Dolly was 8 years old when her uncle Bill, her mother's brother, gave her a guitar. And at the age of 10, she was playing and singing on local TV and radio. So it only took her a couple years to get out there and start playing and singing publicly.
Wow.
Yeah, and at the age of 13, she actually graced the Grand Ole Opry stage, which is the mecca for country music in Nashville.
Holy cow.
And the cooler thing about that is, you know who introduced her on the stage? Johnny Cash.
When she was 13?
When she was 13 years old.
Wow.
Incredible. And they said that she received 3 encores that night. So I don't know if that's just part of the lore of Dolly Parton, but I want to believe it.
I don't doubt it, yeah.
So the Grand Ole Opry is a really beautiful building, and it's just, like I said, it is a treasure. It's a gym in Nashville. Like, anybody who's anybody in country music has played there. So it's a really big deal to be 13 years old on that stage. And sharing the stage with Johnny Cash. I mean, come on.
You've already made it. Yeah, that's your Madison Square Gardens or whatever, and you're 13.
After that, Dolly's first album, her first official album, was actually a double-sided album. It's kind of an odd one. It's called Hits Made Famous by Country Queens with Faye Tucker. And so it was released in 1963.
Oh.
She was about 17 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Side 1 was Faye singing songs by Patsy Cline. And side 2 was Dolly singing songs by Kitty Wells. The really interesting part of that is one of the songs that Kitty made famous was actually written by Dolly Parton. So she sang one of her own songs in tribute to Kitty Wells.
Wait, so Dolly wrote the song that she first recorded?
Yeah, Dolly wrote the song that Kitty Wells recorded.
And then later on, her first appearance on a recording is, I'm going to play it.
Yeah, she's like, this is actually my song, but let's pretend like I'm singing it in, tribute to Kitty Wells.
That's cool. I'd do that.
Pretty wild. So in 1964, she says the day after she graduated high school, she jumped on a bus and headed to Nashville. She was like gone. And so in 1965, she was signed to Monument Records, who initially thought her voice and kind of her look would be better for pop music. And so while she was kind of developing her talent, she wrote songs for other people. She wrote songs for people like Hank Williams Jr. and Bill Phillips. Like, she had some chops already at the age of 17, 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
From 1964 to 1967, she worked on recording an album. She recorded songs between writing songs for other people. And then her first official album debuted in 1967. It was called Hello, I'm Dolly. I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
In 1967, she was hired as the girl singer on the Porter Wagoner Show. And she recorded several duets with Porter, and then in 1971, while she was on the Porter Wagoner Show, her first solo single was her first #1 hit, Joshua. And the rest is really history. Like, her star just rose tremendously from there.
She's superstar level at that point.
Absolutely. So I'd say with that first question in our formula, 100% Dolly has a compelling origin story. So she definitely gets a point there.
Yeah, that's a superhero origin story for sure.
So speaking of Porter Wagoner, the next question in our super special formula is, does Dolly Parton have a nemesis?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, this guy is an asshole.
Okay, how is he the nemesis?
They definitely didn't start out as opposing forces. Spoiler alert, they didn't end that way either. but there's some crazy shit that went down. Porter Wagner. Porter Wagner was a really flamboyant country singer. He had a show on TV that was in black and white. It was on the air for about 6 years. And in 1967, he needed a new singer for his band. And that's how Dolly came into his world. So he really gave Dolly her first big break by hiring her for his TV show. In an interview, Dolly said she was offered like $60,000 a year, but also, she did a roast of Porter Wagner, and she said he only gave her $30 a week. So who knows how much she actually made. To her, it was a lot of money regardless of the price. It was the most money she's ever had in her life.
Yeah, and she's getting to work by following her dreams playing music, so...
Exactly. They were really, really popular. At its height, the Porter Wagner show was syndicated to like 3 million people. Like, people loved this show. And it was just this, like, a variety show, variety hour.
Sure, I imagine you've got a dedicated audience in America. Like, if you're a country music lover, like, you're gonna tune in.
Porter Wagner is an interesting character. The first time he ever introduced Dolly, he called her the best little gal you ever saw, and like he kept saying like very, in my opinion, demeaning things about her. Oh, she's just the prettiest little thing, and like you're gonna love her. He was really giving that vibe of hardcore country misogynist. Like, this little girl came out of the kitchen without shoes on, and she's gonna sing us a little pretty song.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't an equal human being, you know.
The other thing that was really interesting about the Porter Wagner show is, like I said, it was black and white, and then right when Dolly came on, it was color. You see this beautiful woman, big old blonde hair, big, big features, like long nails, like just this gorgeous lady, and it's all in color now. And Porter Wagner had like rhinestones all over his outfits. It was pretty flashy and cool. So it was like a whole new era when Dolly came into his show. It was breathing new, fresh life into it. One of the things I thought was really interesting that I wanted to make sure I quoted correctly was Dolly Parton and Porter Wagner, one of their duets was part of the first moon landing. According to an interview with Apollo 11 commander, Major General Michael Collins, he had a friend that was a Houston disc jockey. The disc jockey got a whole bunch of country artists to put together like special little songs for the people going up in Apollo 11. And so they actually had customized songs. They're like, we're with you down here on Earth kind of thing. Here's a duet, So it was not just Dolly Porter Wagner, but it was also like Merle Haggard and Buck Owens. Like a whole bunch of people put together some music for the astronauts.
And recorded a performance that's specifically dedicated to those astronauts who went to the moon.
Yeah, and so this is a quote that they said, Charlie, we don't know where you are, but we know you're on the way to the moon, and we hope you like this music. The song is especially for you.
Oh.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, that's fun.
Trying to paint the picture, really, like how big the Porter Wagner show was, and how great of a launching pad it was for Dolly Parton.
Oh, yeah, like how this guy sounds like a great guy. Like, how can he possibly be a nemesis?
Right? On the surface, great guy. Guess what? Not so much. Dolly left in 1974 to pursue a solo career, but Porter didn't make it easy to leave. So originally, when Dolly came on the show, she said, I'm going to give you 5 years. And as she was trying to leave, it was like year 6, almost year 7. Porter Wagner would not let her out of her contract. So Dolly said that they butted heads a ton. Like I said, it's kind of cringy when you watch the show because Porter's like, here's that girl singer, and he called her prettiest little thing and beautiful little gal, like very belittling stuff. Dolly said that they were both very headstrong, and so they fought a lot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't always the best time on the show, and especially when she was trying to leave. She felt like Porter Wagner wasn't listening to her, didn't understand what she wanted to do. She wanted to go, but she didn't want him to think that she wasn't grateful for this great launching pad. So she said she was really upset one night, and she thought the best way she could let Porter Wagner know that she appreciated everything, but it was time for her to go, she wrote a song. And so that song is I Will Always Love You. That's the very same song that Whitney Houston made famous when she covered it for the Bodyguard soundtrack.
Nice.
Dolly said that Porter cried when he heard it. She felt like he understood. There was like this very tender moment. It felt like a very sweet, emotional, like I get it now kind of thing. But it turns out he wasn't so gracious.
I was gonna say, like, was his heart finally melted? Like you had to write a song to do it?
Yeah, and like all the ice just melts away. It is a beautiful country moment. No, actually, what happened was in a TV interview in 1978. I watched it. Porter said, quote, "To me, Dolly Parton isn't the kind of person I would trust with anything of mine. I mean, her family, her own blood, she would turn her back on them to help herself. Why was he so bitter about it?
Yeah, why did he say that?
Because Dolly had 8 #1 singles that hit #1 on the US country charts in between the time she was leaving and the time of this interview, 1974-ish to 1978. So she was just topping all of the charts herself. Here You Come Again was #3 on the overall US music chart. So she was big time. By the time of that interview, she had 4 gold records and 1 platinum record, and she even started her own TV show called The Dolly Show. Porter was pissed. He thought that he, as the, quote, discoverer of Dolly Parton, was entitled to a percentage of that.
Oh, so this family that Dolly's turning her back on is him?
Maybe.
And she gave him 5 years.
More than that, she actually gave him 7, technically.
Yeah.
And I didn't really explain much, but during this time when she was on the Porter Wagner show, it wasn't just the show. They had records. They did duets. They had records that went to #1 together. Like, she was a great pull on his show and off of it.
I was noticing that as I was cruising through her discography, like a lot of them from that era are just like Porter Wagner and Dolly Parton. Like that's a huge chunk of her story.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, Porter was a star in his own right. He did have his own television show before Dolly Parton came around. But Dolly just elevated it to the next level. And like I said, that imagery of going from black and white to color and like full Technicolor Dolly, that's really indicative of what this show went through as an evolution.
Right.
So, Porter Wagner filed a $3 million lawsuit against Dolly on March 21st, 1979. And he alleged breach of contract. So in 1980, a duets album was released, but it was all old duets. It was all old songs they had sung together and recorded many years before. What happened was the $3 million lawsuit was actually settled out of court, and it was actually funny because they were not even on speaking terms. So they have this great photo of them on the cover, but it's just 2 different photos of them superimposed. And back when, Photoshop wasn't a thing.
Sure.
The lawsuit settled out of court, and Dolly Parton said, "It took me a while to pay it off, but he got the first $1 million I ever made."
Oh my god.
Isn't that the saddest thing?
That's so wrong.
I know, and if I was Dolly, I would have been fucking pissed at him, and I would have been like, Porter Wagner, you don't exist anymore to me. But it's Dolly, and she's this angel on earth. So Dolly and Porter eventually reconciled and rekindled their friendship. And close to his death in 2007, he actually revealed that he was faced with this huge back tax bill that he couldn't pay. He had no money. So Dolly purchased his songwriting catalog so he could pay off his debt. And then when he earned enough money to buy the song back from her, can I have my songs back? I have the money now. She just gave them to him.
Oh my god. So the guy doesn't pay his taxes and has to get bailed out by Dolly like half a dozen times in his life.
But the other thing then to note about this relationship was Dolly was there on his deathbed. They had really truly rekindled their friendship, not in a way that's superficial. She really loved him, and she was like, I'm going to be there for you.
Good. I mean, she came out ahead, like holding hate for someone isn't healthy for you, so good for Dolly.
I just don't know how she did. She was just magnanimous. It was beautiful.
Speaking of a nemesis, I imagine that, like Batman would be at the Joker's deathbed, so I feel like this Porter Wagner is absolutely a nemesis to Dolly Parton.
Oh, because he killed him?
No, I just feel like, like if the Joker finally just is dying of old age, like Batman would be right there and be like, hey buddy, like...
Thanks for the memories.
Like Tom and Jerry just be like, it's not going to be the same without you.
So yeah, that's the nemesis for Dolly, and I think that's absolutely a point.
Yeah, I didn't know he was that bad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, although he did have great clothes.
Okay. I guess he's not that bad then.
All villains have great outfits.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
It's okay to love a villain.
Thank you. Thank you for that permission. So what's next on our list?
Next up in the list is, does Dolly have a sidekick? And or is she in a crime-fighting group? Well, not a crime-fighting group. And she's not really known to stick with a particular group, but she did release a few albums with a trio. In 1987, she paired up with longtime friends Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt.
Wow.
They've been attempting to record an album together since the mid-1970s, but they were also busy around that same time, scheduling conflicts, and they all recorded for different record labels. Finally, like 10 years later in 1987, the collaboration came to fruition, and she recorded an album, and there's a sequel to that.
What's the album called?
Just Trio, and apparently that had 4 hit singles. I don't know what they are.
Do you want to sing them right now?
But they're there. But her sidekick nowadays would be Steve Summers.
Who's Steve Summers?
Steve Summers serves as her creative director and has worked with her for over 29 years. He's the man who designs her beautiful clothes. He works on album covers, creates the stage sets, and anything visual pertaining to her brand. Yeah, he also created her Chasing Rainbows Museum at Dollywood. I guess he started as a singer and dancer at Dollywood, and then he like worked his way up from there because he would complain about like, oh, you know, these clothes aren't good, and he even self-described, he's like, I guess I was the whiniest one. Like he would say like, I can't move in these clothes, I can't dance in these clothes. So like, well, can you do something better? You know, Dolly identified him and said like, oh, like he's got a good personality, a good vision. So she paid for him to go to like fashion school and like rose up there, and he just like takes care of like everything creative. Like when she goes to an award show, she won't just have like one dress, he'll have like 4 dresses ready, and then she'll like pick which one, you know, depending on like, is she going to be standing, is she going to be sitting, is she going to be riding in a car. And if you look at all the photos, like all of her outfits and costumes, it's like, okay, a lot of thought goes into that. And like Dolly herself is a creative giant, so he's really just like has to direct it, you know.
Wow.
So in my research, if she does have a sidekick, I'm sure she has a lot of sidekicks, but that's one of them, Steve Summers.
He sounds like a really amazing person.
You know, every woman's got a great man behind her.
Is that what that quote is?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Oh, 2 or 3 men.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that really does sound like a point. I feel like not just for Steve as a sidekick, but also for the trio of crime-fighting singers.
Oh, I guess also, I don't know, who is she in 9 to 5 with?
Oh, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin.
Yeah, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, they were always friends, and they fought the evil boss in the film 9 to 5, so...
That's actually very true. An iconic trio. That's such a good movie.
It is. So yeah, I think she absolutely gets a point for a crime-fighting group.
Where are we at? We have origin story, yes. Nemesis, yes. Sidekick, crime-fighting group, yes. So that's 3 for 3. Dolly's doing pretty well. So next on the list is, does Dolly have a signature move or signature equipment? And that is a big yes. And you know what it is?
What's that?
Writing songs.
Okay.
This is a quote from Dolly. She said, I can write anytime, anywhere, any place. Dolly's not one of those people who have to be in a special mood or special environment. She said she tries to keep a tape recorder in her purse or a notebook by her bed, and wherever inspiration strikes, that's where she's going to be writing. So she writes on the go. In her book, Song Teller, which is this amazing coffee table book, which is like huge, it's hundreds of pages of her lyrics and pictures and stories about her music.
Is that the really big one you got?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so beautiful. I highly recommend it to anyone who is interested in Dolly or just really loves books. So Dolly said at her core she is a songwriter. She said the songs lead to everything else. Everything that I am starts with a song. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, as a kid, Dolly used to love to go to graveyards and make up stories about the people whose names she saw on the graves, especially young children. So she's always been this storyteller. She's always been entertaining her family, her friends. She's always been making up little stories in her head.
It's a very interesting exercise, going to the graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, as a writer myself, I think I should try it sometime.
Honestly, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but Dolly has written more than 3,000 songs in her lifetime.
Wow. That's awesome. After hearing that she's the kind of person that like it's just simply always coming. It's always on, you know. And I was wondering, I was like, man, because a lot of times you hear about artists who like struggle or have writer's block or it's not good enough or crumpling up the paper. But like, I don't know, when I hear 3,000, that's incredible.
Yeah, and she doesn't necessarily have to experience the stories to write about them. She's very great at like imagining how people would feel and being very empathetic.
That's so cool. And she loves songwriting, huh?
She loves it. And she's been writing for, it's been like 65 years of songwriting. So that's almost a song per week.
Jesus.
That's insane to me. And I know as someone who's, been in bands and written songs, like, that's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, that's incredible.
The other thing about these 3,000 songs is, they're really amazing songs. Jolene, you know it? Jolene, 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 Jolene. That song? I mean, who doesn't know the hook of that song?
Her auburn locks and eyes of fire, whatever. What is
Her
it?
flaming locks of auburn hair with ivory skin and eyes of emerald green.
Oh, yeah, green eyes.
Yeah, actually, I think on the download, that's probably why I think people with red hair and green eyes are like the most beautiful people on earth. It's probably just Jolene's fault. Like Christina Hendricks or Ron Weasley.
Yeah.
I'm joking. They both have blue eyes, but you know what I mean. So Jolene, the song itself, has been covered hundreds of times since its debut in 1973 by artists, like a wide range of artists. We're talking Sisters of Mercy, The White Stripes, Olivia Newton-John, Pentatonics, Strawberry Switchblade, Mumford & Sons, Alison Krauss, Patti Smith, and even Miley Cyrus, who's her goddaughter, by the way. Do you have a favorite Dolly song?
Yeah, actually, if I had to pick one, my favorite Dolly song would be Jolene. Really? I don't listen to a lot of Dolly Parton, but I like the slowed down version of Jolene. If you take a 45 and then slow it down, it just pitches it down and slows down the tempo. That's my favorite Dolly song.
Does it sound creepy?
No, not really creepy, but it's just instead of a fast kind of, and Dolly has such a high register, it's kind of slowed down, more groovy. The guitar's tuned down, and the vocal is in a much lower range. So
that's kind of amazing. I want to hear it.
Yeah.
So I have a favorite and then I have another favorite. And so it really depends on when we're talking about, because I have to confess that 7, 8-year-old baby protagonist, I would sing the Whitney Houston cover version of I Will Always Love You at the top of my lungs outside in my front yard with my little neighbor kids, which is totally normal, by the way. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
But overall, my favorite Dolly song of all time is the title track from the 1975 album, The Bargain Store.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that. I'll have to check that out.
So I'm a lyrics person. I'm a words person. And so I really, really love the lyrics, and I'll read a couple to you. I've wasted love, but I still have some more. The bargain store's open. Come inside. You can easily afford the price. Love is all you need to purchase all the merchandise, and I can guarantee you'll be completely satisfied. If it has a Jolene feel, it's slower, and the guitar's really beautiful. It's awesome, and her voice is just like an angel.
Bargain store, okay.
Yeah, highly recommended.
All right, so her signature moves, songwriting.
So next on our list is, does Dolly have a superpower?
Yeah, in my research, I can't think of a superpower other than if you want to try to parlay saying her signature move of songwriting as a superpower, but I mean...
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe no official superpower?
No official superpower that I was able to find. She can't talk to ghosts, can't fly, can't turn invisible, can't travel through time. Those are the kind of things that I would consider superpowers.
Okay, that's fair. So Dolly gets a no on the superpower. I mean, I feel like just being Dolly Parton is kind of a superpower.
Yeah. If you disagree, write in or leave us a comment.
Yeah, send us a voicemail. Send us a pigeon.
Just leave us a message on our answering machine.
Just put a letter outside our door.
Yeah. The next point is, does Dolly Parton have a secret identity?
So I think absolutely. And hear me out, because it kind of melts into wears a costume and wears a mask. But Dolly is really well known for her appearance. So huge beauty pageant blonde hair, heavy makeup with large eyelashes, lip liner, bright lipstick, sparkly sequined outfits, big boobs. She really embraces and appreciates cosmetic alterations. In an interview, she said she gets small things done here and there when she needs to, because she doesn't want to get a ton done at once and be really obvious. But that makes the appearance of Dolly just being timeless.
I've heard her say that too, the line about, yeah, she's always getting plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery because she wants to look young forever, and she's just real happy with looking artificial. That's not really a problem for her.
She embraces it. And so
Yeah.
she actually often tells a story about when she was a little girl and her family went in town and they saw this woman walking around, and the woman had like huge hair, tons of makeup, long nails, red lips, those funky like heels people wore that were see-through and they had little fish in the heel. That style. Like, that was this woman. And she, as a young girl, said, wow, that woman is so beautiful. And her mother, she remembers, said, oh no, she's trash. She's like the village bicycle. She's trash, And Dolly remembers thinking, well, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be trash. So that is like the Dolly appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a huge admirer of drag, that's kind of the frame that I interpret and understand her visual choices. Like, drag is subversive, it challenges people, it celebrates what is so often used to alienate or insult, like that trash comment. Drag is just fucking magical, and that's what Dolly's doing. She's putting on drag, she's putting on this appearance. And did you know that Dolly even said she entered a Dolly Parton lookalike drag contest, and she came in third? Like, that's super drag.
That's hilarious.
That's how drag Dolly is. So Dolly is constantly hiding lessons there. She's constantly hiding lessons in her work, in her appearance, in her songs, Coat of Many Colors, Dumb Blonde. She's saying, don't judge a book by its cover. To me, she is feminism just personified. But at the same time, she's really careful not to say it out loud. She doesn't beat you over the head with the fact that she's a feminist, but everything she does, all the music she produces, it's feminism. I think that she's such an exceptional entrepreneur. She's one of the most successful musicians and personas of the 20th century, but she presents herself as this down-home, backwards Barbie. She is this tiny little 5-foot tall figure, and she's an absolute powerhouse. So that's her secret identity, and that's her costume, too.
It is an interesting thing that she does that I can't think of many other people doing. She is very flamboyant. The sparkle, the shine, the color, I guess she is flashy and artificial, but it comes from a sincere place. And I think that is the critical thing that's different, about Dolly compared to, other people who are similarly artificial or flashy or superficial. This, like you said, like, she's just very sincere.
Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of a mindfuck for people. And I remember hearing an interview of Jane Fonda, who starred in 9 to 5 with her, and she talked about how she spent time with Dolly, and Lily Tomlin said this too, like, they've never seen Dolly without her wig and makeup. No one has. Dolly is just always put on, always Dolly, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's for her. She loves it. Okay, so that was secret identity and wears a mask and costume.
Yeah, I would argue that that's a point for both. But if we want to split hairs, we can split that point in half. So up to you.
So is it a secret identity?
Well, I think that's where the subversion comes in, that drag. It kind of is a secret that she's actually very authentic. She's actually very intelligent and successful, but she presents herself as this dumb blonde.
Okay. All right. So you want to give her 2 points for those?
Yeah, I think a point for each.
All right.
Okay.
Point for each.
So that's 2 more points for Dolly. So next on our list is all superheroes have to be great with the ladies,
Well, in my research, I was able to find things like being great with the gentleman.
What do you mean by great with the gentleman? Because hasn't she been married since she was like 19?
Right. She has been married, very successful marriage for a very long time to, what's his name? Carl Dean or something?
Carl Dean. Yeah, Carl Dean.
Yeah, and he stays out of the public eye, but Dolly's always just talking about, like, I love him and he loves me, and that's pretty great. But she's also been quoted by saying, I love to flirt, and I've never met a man I didn't like. Men are my weakness. Short, fat, bald, or skinny. I've had crushes on some very unusual men. Unquote.
Wow. I never knew that about Dolly.
Yeah, and even in the film 9 to 5, she's obviously getting hit on nonstop by the boss. So she's a very, like, sex symbol
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
that her body shape, her breasts, we haven't really talked about it a lot, but her breasts are incredibly famous. When people make jokes about big boobs, they often make a Dolly Parton joke. Do you remember the first cloned animal? It was a sheep named Dolly.
Dolly the sheep.
Yeah, it was named after Dolly Parton, and you know why?
How? Yeah, why was it named after Dolly Parton?
The cells that they took were from mammary glands. Mammary glands. That's how they cloned. Yeah, that's how
Oh
they
my
created new sheep.
God.
So that's why they named her Dolly. Like, her body is very famous.
That's the real reason?
Yeah, because she's just
Okay.
like, she's that like hourglass, not even hourglass really. She is very top heavy, a tiny little waist and like tiny little hips,
Yeah.
She's such a small, petite woman.
Wow. Okay. I mean, yeah, and even in the last part, like her visual inspiration is basically a prostitute. So, she wants to appeal to men, appeal to women. So I would give her a point. I think she is great with the ladies, and unless your name is Jolene, probably not great with her.
I don't know. I feel like if I was Jolene, in the end, I would have been like, you're right, Dolly. I'm moving on.
Maybe she did.
Maybe she took her man after all.
Yeah.
Do you know where Jolene came from, by the way? That name?
No?
Dolly introduced Jolene, the song, as like, I wrote this song about some girl who's trying to take my man and she was at a bank. So like immediately I thought like, oh, a bank teller tried to take Carl Dean from you, Dolly? But then she tells the story again later on and she's like, actually that name, I was signing autographs. I said, what's your name? And this little girl, she said, Jolene. And she's like, Jolene, that's a great name. And that's where Jolene apparently comes from.
It's a very, musical name. I don't know if I would think this without having heard the song in my life, but like I'd like to imagine like if I had never heard the Dolly Parton song Jolene, like you hear the name Jolene, it has a very like musical tone to it, I guess.
Yeah. So I would hope that Jolene would in the end love Dolly as well.
Yeah. She's great with the ladies. She gets a point for that.
Number one with the ladies. That's so many points for Dolly so far. We have origin story, yes. We have secret identity, yes. Wear a mask, yes. Great with ladies, yes. Does she have a sidekick or a crime fighting group? Absolutely, yes. Superpower? Not so much. Signature move? Yes. Nemesis? Yes.
Couple more categories to go.
All right, what's next?
Is Dolly Parton selfless?
This is where Dolly shines. I mean, Dolly's an incredible songwriter. She's beautiful. She's a powerhouse. But this is her most beautiful quality. One of her other identities, I would say, is Selfless Barbie, because she's literally done so much, and most of those things are not even well known. So let's take Dollywood as a start. So Dollywood is an amusement park. It's a water park and resort that celebrates like the Smoky Mountain Appalachian heritage. It's located in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. There are estimates that the park employs 3,000 to 4,000 people, local people, between its properties, and about 4 million people visit each year. So it's this huge part of the Smoky Mountain economy. It employs a ton of people. I think that's a really big thing that Dolly did to give back, because she wanted to make sure that people were celebrating the heritage, but also that people had jobs.
It's like an amusement park on the level of like Disneyland or something, like rides and stuff.
There are rides, there are, like you said earlier, a museum, there's like a bald eagle sanctuary, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
That's a Dollywood. Okay, it's like Dolly Parton's Graceland or whatever.
Yeah, but like cooler.
Yeah, not that I know what Graceland is, but I've heard Elvis has his own little land. Or doesn't Michael Jackson have his own little land too?
I mean, maybe that's for another podcast. So Dollywood is a literal place. It's an amusement park. It has tons of visitors every year. A lot of Dolly's family performs there. Like you said, one of her employees, her partner, worked up the ranks. So
right.
The Dollywood Foundation, it gives out thousands of dollars every year to local high schoolers and scholarships. There's also the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So Dolly talked about a lot, because her family was so big and they didn't have a lot of money. Her father would say, don't bring home any books because I don't want them ruined. There's so many kids, they could have like put them in their mouths, tore them apart, whatever. He didn't want to pay for books from the library.
Gotcha.
One of the big things Dolly wanted to do was be the book lady. She created an imagination library that sent more than 160 million free books to kids. It started in 1996. She sends books to kids from birth to age 5, and it started just locally in Tennessee, and then it's expanded everywhere. It's in the US, Canada, the UK, Ireland, and Australia. And she even did this YouTube series called Good Night with Dolly, where she reads books to kids. It's freaking adorable.
Aww.
In addition to that, Dolly did something that I never knew until I researched this podcast. She helped produce Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie and TV show.
She just really believed in it.
A great lady fighting vampires. She had a entertainment company and she was like, here's some money, let's make this thing happen. And apparently when Dolly found out that the executive producer, Gail Berman, was not paid as much as her male counterparts, Dolly was like, that is bullshit. And she's like, Gail, come to lunch with me. And she handed her a check to make up the difference.
Interesting.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So that's part of that subversive, feminism I was talking about earlier. Dolly's been recognized a lot for her good deeds and the support she gives her community. There's a statue of Dolly playing guitar barefoot in downtown Sevierville, which is where she was born and raised. In 2004, Parton got the Living Legend Medal from the Library of Congress. And in 2019, Nashville actually declared August 5th Dolly Parton Day.
Nice.
Yeah, so Dolly Parton has her own day in Nashville. Is there an end to her giving? I don't think so. Dolly is the epitome of selfless, and to me she really illustrates something that's really close to my heart. We rise by lifting others.
Yeah, reading about her and doing research about her, she really seems to understand like love and empathy, which is really cool. All of her charitable organizations and projects.
Kind of in tandem with that is our last question, which is, does Dolly Parton save lives?
Yeah, I think along with being selfless in non-life-saving ways, I think she absolutely has saved lives. The recent thing contemporary to us in the news is she donated $1 million to the Vanderbilt Institute for Infection, which is an institute in Nashville, and then they went on to help research the COVID-19 vaccine with Moderna.
Oh, so like the basis of the Moderna vaccine, basically.
Yeah, so she's been in the headlines a lot as a big supporter of fighting the coronavirus.
So Dolly Parton's literally helped save lives?
Yeah, a lot of the parts with selfless and saves lives kind of went together, but I figured the COVID-19 donation went a little more toward that. Another thing that I found is she has a program called Mountain Tough, which provides a lot of help and resources for employers, workers, schools in that county and that town kind of village where she grew up in Tennessee. It connects them with counseling and food resources, shopping assistance for senior citizens.
Wow.
And if you go to it now, it just shows a bunch of resources for people affected by COVID-19.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I have a source saying that in 2016, in the wake of the Gatlinburg fires, which is a series of fires that ravaged Tennessee, she created the My People Fund and raised like $9 million for a bunch of different families there.
Wow. So like people lost their homes, devastated by the fire.
You know, she grew up there and she knows how bad it can be and just tries to level things out and give them the help they need, whether it's Dollywood or, these specific Mountain Tough or My People Fun things. And then nationwide, or even like, I guess it's global because you said it's in like Canada, Australia, and the UK, the Imagination Library. So
because reading is so vital to those first stages of life when you're a child to like really help you develop, for her to be able to just provide free books. And it's not just, here you go, one kid, here's a free book. It gives you books till you're 5 years old. Go to the mailbox, you get a book from Dolly.
Yeah, for 5 years. So she's figuratively saved a lot of lives, but recently she's literally probably saved a life. In the summer of 2019, Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
She's filming the Netflix holiday special, Christmas on the Square.
Christmas on the Square. She was an angel.
Yeah, she plays an angel. And Talia Hall, a 9-year-old actor and dancer, was in the path of an oncoming vehicle. Here's her quote from the day. "We were on set, and I was at the hot chocolate station. And they said, go back to your beginning positions. So there was a vehicle moving, and I was walking. And then somebody grabbed me and pulled me back. And I looked up, and it was Dolly Parton. Dolly said, well, I am an angel, because she plays an angel in the movie."
Wow. Wow. Dolly is everywhere. Dolly is the savior of humanity.
She's really like, what do you call it when you can like sing, dance, and act or whatever? Just the triple threat. Like she can...
Mocatrice.
Yeah, Mocatrice,
Model, cantar, actrice.
Yeah, she's a model. She looks good. She writes 3,000 songs and sings them all. And then she saves lives.
She's triple, quadruple, quintuple threat.
Yeah, she is an icon, but is she a superhero?
Well, let's tally the score. So, we have origin story, secret identity, costume, great with ladies, sidekick, signature move or equipment, selfless, nemesis, and saves lives. The only thing she didn't get a point for was having a superpower. So that's 9 out of 10. So on our hero scale, let's look it up. 8 to 9 points is she could save a whole population. So she could save every human on all the islands and the streams and help them sail away to another world.
That's beautiful.
That's how powerful she is.
That's right. You're related to a legend.
Thank you for being alive, Dolly, and thank you for saving us all.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us on this episode of
Superhero or Not.
You can find us at superheroornot.com.
And we'll see you back at the Fortress of Ratitude. Well, it's over.